And so they realise they have to change tack, and that together they have to go finding the ways that by which, as it said, these maidens and knights they find in the wood, they say that they're destined to wander until God shall show them the court of joy. I think it's just such a beautiful thing, and the court of joy is very important in the Arthurian legend. There's a place, a time, a condition into which we enter, and as you just said, it's not about being in time; it's about acting from timelessness. So rather than saying, "This is me and my people getting hard done by here," this is taking a much wider perspective and saying, how do my actions, my words, my thoughts change the universe now? And
I loved in the book the way you show at one point 3 concentric rings, and it explains quite well, I felt, that how we can move from our own personal belief system, which is in time. We have a sense of time, and then suddenly we begin to move into this mythopoetic space that might even be more real than who we think we are, and we're invited into the Grail, which is in a timeless world. I thought that was lovely.
But the Grail, of course, is not, it's not like the end of the Indiana Jones movie where the Ark of the Covenant gets pushed in a CIA warehouse. Heaven forfend that should ever happen. Because, of course, it's not an object that can be found and curated in a museum. The Grail is a condition into which we enter. Time and time again, and we fall out of that communion. And so with the earlier story of the Maidens of the Wells and their hospitality to all travellers, we see evidence of what we've called a Faerie accord, whereby we are in tune with all that is in the world, including all that is in the earth as well. And that's a condition that we all need to be able to return to, which is not just the back to nature. It is it's entering into that mythic space, which is a much, much larger one, which includes us, everyone on Earth now, every being on Earth now, every being on Earth that was ever on Earth, and every being on Earth that will ever be on Earth. Which, of course, puts you into a different position. It changes the way you see how to do things, because it puts us into a condition of harmlessness, which, if you go into nature, is one of the things you have to do if you want to observe, say, birds or animals. Yes, you can get into a hide so that you don't trouble them by anything you're doing, but you also bring your consciousness into tune with them so that you don't frighten them.
I was struck too by the. I love your connection to the earth and nature, which is, it might be where most of our work is right now. We can go to church and take communion, but is there a way to reestablish this Faerie chord? Is there a way that our listeners today could start to go and take a cup out into the natural world and say, please may I align with you again?
But I think just getting to know the place where you are, but to visit it both in time and place, but also in timelessness and spaciousness. So, and that means standing wherever you happen to be, and being aware of what's above you, what's below you, what's around you on each side, in a physical sense, but also what lies behind that, because what we see is only half of the world, isn't it? The reality is made up of what we can see, feel, hear, and touch, and also a lot of other things that we can't see, feel, hear, and touch in the same way, but with which we are also in connection. And if we fall out of that connection, which, of course, if you go to cultures throughout the world, traditional cultures like the Aboriginal ones in Australia or in North America, or South America, or wherever you happen to go, that the people who indigenously live there understand that that is a space into which they always are having to enter in order to have good respect. so that, if they're taking some plants that they need to eat or to make medicines with, they're not going to sort of, take up, 6 bushes. They're going to take some of the plants from some of those 6 bushes, yes? And so I think this mythic level at which we are part of the land on which we live is much more than the political or the geographic. It is to do with all that is. And that Faerie Grail communion is that communion with all that is.
It seems like in that way, inviting us into all that is, that's very different than it's not really a religious concept where we say, oh no, this is the only way, the only truth, the only light. This is actually saying everything that is here for a reason. Everything that is exists. It's part of the wisdom. It's part of the divine, and so honor every single piece of it. And that maybe that's what happens when we touch the Grail or sip the Grail. We understand this larger perspective. Would you say?
I think it is, because we fall in and out of. It's not a condition that most people stay in. Holy people and people who go on retreat and people who go up into the mountains and in order to seek that silence and connection. Do experience it for longer periods. We fall in and out of forgetfulness, but we have to remember that we're here sharing the earth. It's not we belong to the earth, not the earth belonging to us.
We don't have dominion over it then, but I don't know where that came from.
Well, of course, that comes in Genesis, doesn't it? When when Adam and Eve are getting set up, as they say, at the beginning. But the stories of how things go wrong, and of course the story in Genesis is one of the biggest stories that's affected the whole world and how we see it. Especially when we sort of think doctrines like original sin and so on, which unfortunately have the co-effect of saying, well, the earth is spoiled, which is not a good starting point, and of course we have injured parts of the universe in ways that seem to us irretrievable, and it's a difficult one, and it's one that we have to face, because we have to do better than this.
And so,
better.
And here we have, in your book, we have a 7-fold path. And so it seems, in a way, it seems secret. And as you said, it reveals itself as it wishes to. one story, one Grail maiden at a time. But is there a way to follow a path, or do people need to go on your courses perhaps to begin to follow a path, to move back into a harmony with nature, and a harmony with the spiritual world?
Everyone can do this where they happen to be, even if they live in a breaker's yard. It's not I have to be in the right conditions in order to do this. And we have to start now. We have to start now with the place that we live, with the community that is around us, with the country around that, with the whole world and the unseen world as part of it, because these are the deeply wounded places of the earth that we need to work with too. And we all know where they are. Every time, when we go on a out of the car and we look at the beautiful landscape, and when we're going through an industrial wasteland, we look away.
Exactly.
We look away because we can have we don't feel belonging with it. We don't feel at home in it, and we know that it's part of the world in which we live. So this myth is one that is still happening. And the myth also sort of tells us that even after the wasteland is healed, there is still a whole lot more trouble that can come. So it's not about resting on our laurels and saying, oh, we're all going to nirvana and getting sorted out here. It is about, living with the consequences and dealing with those consequences as they arrive, which is what, of course, we're doing in the 21st century, which is decisions that were taken in the 19th century are ones that we're still living with. Are the ones that we're now beginning to perpetrate are ones that the 22nd and 23rd, centuries will be dealing with.
This probably goes back quite a long ways, but in the story we have the rape of the Well Maidens by Mangons, and I thought it was interesting that his name looks like a man gone. He's not there. So it seems like when this happens,